Hi, I'm Ryan with the R&R Law Group, and today we're back talking about the fourth way that a DUI can get aggravated to a felony in Arizona. What that is the ignition interlock requirement. So this is ARS 28-1383A4. Again, the fourth way that you can get an aggravated DUI or a felony DUI in Arizona. What this means is that you have the DUI portion, and then you're also supposed to have an ignition interlock in your car. So the statute that determines whether or not you're supposed to have the ignition interlock in your car is 28-3319, and it covers all the different requirements. This is after you've been processed for a previous DUI, and you're required by the motor vehicle department to install an ignition interlock into your vehicle. Now, some people ask us, well, I was just driving my wife's car, I was driving a friend's car, and they didn't have the ignition interlock in it. Well, if you're driving that vehicle and you're required to have an ignition interlock in your car, anytime you're driving a vehicle, you're supposed to have that ignition interlock in your car. So what happens is you get pulled over and they arrest you for a DUI, or they believe that you are driving under the influence. And then you have that restriction on your driver's license, meaning that it says, IID restriction, you're supposed to have that interlock device installed in your vehicle. That then is going to elevate you from a misdemeanor DUI up to the aggravated DUI. This, like many of the other aggravated DUIs, this is a Class 4 felony, again falling in that middle range as far as felonies, 1 being the worst, 6 being the least penalized DUI that's out there. But again, it also could be if the police pull you over and you are driving your vehicle and it does properly have the ignition interlock in it, but they are going to charge you with a prescription drug DUI or a marijuana DUI. Even though you had the ignition interlock installed in your vehicle, that's still going to go to the level of a Class 4 felony because that requirement is still required on your vehicle. So we have a lot of questions in Arizona about the marijuana DUIs or drug DUIs, and then having to have the ignition interlock installed in your car, and what can happen, what can't happen. But if you are required from a previous DUI to have the ignition interlock installed in your vehicle, and you get pulled over on a suspicion of a new DUI, that's going to raise the stakes up to that felony DUI, the aggravated DUI Class 4 felony. Now, what's interesting about this level of this particular subset of aggravated DUI is it doesn't have that mandatory prison requirement. So if you're charged with an aggravated DUI because of the ignition interlock device installation in your car, and you're convicted of that, this does not require you to go to prison prior to starting probation. So you would serve a term of jail term, and again, with the jail term, you can do work furlough where you can get out and just spend the night there. But your jail term could be as little as 1 day. That 24 hours would be served consecutively, so you wouldn't be eligible for work furlough on that first day. But if you're only sentenced to 1 day, then you can go in, you can pick when that's going to be, Saturday, Sunday, and try and work it out that way. But again, it is still a Class 4 felony, and as we've discussed in some other videos, these felonies are forever priors, meaning that if you ever got in trouble 25 years down the road, this prior would still be able to be used against you to increase any penalty later. So if you've been arrested for a DUI and you know that you've got that restriction on your license, or you've been charged with an aggravated DUI for this particular reason, make sure you give our office a call so we can talk about the different options that you have.